ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਕੰਠ ਰਮਣੀय ਰਾਮ ਰਾਮ ਮਾਲਾ, ਹਸਤ ਊਚ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਧਾਰਣੀ। ਜੀ ਭਣ ਜੋ ਉੱਤਮ ਸਲੋਕ, ਉਧਰਣ ਨੈਨ ਨੰਦਨੀ। ਜੀ ਭਣ ਜੋ ਉੱਤਮ ਸਲੋਕ, ਉਧਰਣ ਨੈਨ ਨੰਦਨੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Sangat ji, this is the 14th part of Salok Sehaskriti Katha, and we've just heard the 32nd slok by Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah, and this slok is on Ang 1356, but we will be going on, and then the whatever sloks we go through now after this will be on Ang 1357. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah Ji beautifully describes to us about a mala, often that somebody was on the path of God, that was making many attempts and trying many different ways to have that union with Vaheguru Ji, to have that union with God. And many of them would actually use a mala. A mala is a bead, some call it a rosary, that you would use that would help to focus your mind. And you would go through each bead and you'd use whatever mantra that was given to you by your Guru. And Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah Ji saying here, they're saying that yes, we might start in the beginning, our journey might start with having a physical mala in our hand, using those beads and using that in the beginning. But Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah is saying, they said, but it shouldn't just remain where we need something physical to help us focus, where we need something physical to remind us of our given mantra from our Guru. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah said that we should recite with so much devotion that it goes deep inside of us. So Guru Sahib Ji ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੰਠ ਰਮਣੀय ਰਾਮ ਰਾਮ ਮਾਲਾ। Padshah Ji saying, you know that mala, this says those beads that you use and you're going round and round to help you focus your mind, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ allow that now to go into your kant. Kant, Sangat Ji, even though you might see translated as that mala that's around our neck, but what Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah Ji is saying, they're saying allow that mala to go, that the one that's wore around our neck. They said, but that each bead, the naam that you are saying Ram for us as Sikh, that we're giving the naam as Vaheguru, this is let that Vaheguru mantra go into your kant. Sangat Ji, Mahapurkh tell us about these avasthas, those great saints of Vaheguru Ji tell us about these stages, that first we recite what is referred to as Bakhri Bani out loud using this tongue, so that even if somebody close to us, somebody sitting close to us, they're able to hear that as well. And then out loud, and it goes back into these ears, that sound. So we out loud Vaheguru 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 Vaheguru, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਠਾ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੰਨਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਪੂਰੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ, ਉੱਚੀ ਬੈਖਰੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਪਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ let those beads now go deeper inside of you. ਤਾਂ ਫੇਰ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਡੀ ਚੱਲ ਪਏ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫੇਰ ਤਾਂ ਬਸ ਤੁਰਦੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ, ਫੇਰ ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਚੱਲ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫੇਰ ਚੱਲ ਪਈ। It's like saying once a car gets going, that's it then. You know, sometimes when a car isn't starting and then you have to give it a push start, you give it that push start, but then they'll say, but once it gets going, then you're okay. Once we actually get trained using that physical mala from outside, and then it goes deep inside, and then it'll start become more of a whisper. Fir andar jeeb halle vi hildi a, the tongue is still moving, and then it'll be more subtle than it. So I'm not sure if anyone heard that, but I'm sure you can be doing this alongside at home. So you're whispering the Guru Mantar, the Vaheguru Mantar. If any of my Hindu Veers are listening, whatever mantras that you are given, whether it be Ram, that naam that you're given by your Guru. And if there's any even Muslim brothers listening or sisters listening, and Hindu sisters. So, and then for whatever naam they are given, I know that within the Quran, there's 99 different names of how to recite the name of that creator of Vaheguruji. And then that goes more and more subtle. And then Sangat Ji, it goes from there, that's called Maddham Bani. Maddham Bani when it goes really quiet. And then after that, your tongue's not even moving. Then after that, once your tongue's not moving, you can actually then feel that your Guru Mantar now, what your Guru has given you, it's gone now into that area. What Pachaji is saying here, kende kant ramaneeya. Sangat Ji, the word ramaneeya, sorry, I didn't translate that. But here, just having a look, it's not actually translated within the English translations. So ramaneeya means sundar. Sundar means beautiful. And they said that when that mala, when those beads go inside of you, that bead is then so beautiful. Of that within your kant, and that avastha of the mantra is, what happens is then it's just beating in this area. So you're not moving your tongue, you're not saying it out loud, nobody else can hear it, and all it is, it's that Vaheguru mantra without and sound is just beating inside in this region. And what happens is, Mahaprabhu say that the great saints that have given themselves to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they say that the fall from it, the fruits now start to increase. Why are the fruits starting to increase now? Because the more subtle something gets, Sangat Ji, meaning that our ekagrata, our focus and attention, becomes more and more subtle as well, becomes more focused, and it eventually will take us, it will become so subtle and focused and concentrated that will spread throughout our entire body. That will go through, then it will reach, the Guru Mantra will reach each pore of our body, and then Sangat Ji will become so subtle that it will reach that one that is the subtlest of the most subtlest, which is Vaheguruji themselves. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. So carrying on, it's talking about how to take that Guru Mantra deep inside of us. Pachaji kehne hast ooch prem dhanani. What is one of the ways that this avastha could be increasing? How our ekagrata, how our focus, our consciousness is getting more and more subtle inside. Pachi kende hast ooch. And what hast ooch is, just having a quick look again, that it's not translated what hast ooch actually means. And it comes from the word, what it is, it comes from the word, what is it? It's gomukhi, that's it. So go means the cow, mukhi means the mouth, and it's a little pouch that's actually shaped like the mouth of a cow. And what that was, that the mala, that when somebody was going to actually use their rosary, their beads, what they would do is they'd have this little pouch that they'd have the whole mala hidden in, so that it wasn't obvious to everyone, because this mala isn't a show. But even though Sadhguruji Pachaji's Bani tells us that there's many people that actually make it into a show. And what is that Bani? Pachaji is saying that Mathe Tilak, those people, they've got a sacred sign upon their forehead. Mathe Tilak Hath Mala, on their hands, and you may have seen this, some people, they have the mala wrapped all the way around their hand and their wrist, and it's very much on show. So they like the whole world to know, look how religious I am. And ek gal zarur hai ithe sangat ji karke meri das di aadat eh nahi kadi vi aapa negative paase nahi jana, never to actually bring someone down, never to be negative. My intention never is that. So it's very important for us to understand these Bani, these Pangatiyan like this, somebody could take these panktiyan and make it very negative, because there's people out there, they use these very panktiyan, these lines that Sache Paatshah is talking about, that mathe tilak hath mala bana. And what that means is that people say that, see, this is something that Gurmat vich is cheeਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖੰਡਨ ਕੀਤਾ. What they'll say is that according to Gurmat, that these things are against the Guru's way, Guru Nanak's way. It doesn't mean that. Satguru Ji Paatshah Ji is merely bringing to our attention that having a mala wrapped around your wrist and having a tilak on your matha, yes, kende oh, and you're not actually using it to instill God's name deep inside of you, and then, but actually all you want to do is, it becomes a showpiece for you, and you want other people to think you are religious but your intentions are something else. Paatshah Ji is talking about those people. No, otherwise, Sangat Ji, if somebody has got a mala wrapped around their wrist, there's nothing wrong with that. Very important to understand. Absolutely nothing wrong with that if their intention from inside is that mala is there as a reminder. Because the other word used for a mala is a simrana. Bhagat Kabir Ji, they actually use this word for the mala. They say, Kabir Ji say, Kabir meri simrani rasna upar Ram. So if you look at this now, Bhagat Kabir, Kabir meri simrani. Simrani here again is the rosary. So Simrani can be referred to as the smaller one with the less beads, and sometimes that has about 32 beads, and the larger one has 108 beads. Kende Kabir meri Simrani rasana upar Ram. But Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, kende, where is my Simrani now? Kende, my Simrani is upon my tongue. Again, let's just clear all the doubts here, because there's people out there that are putting doubt in people's minds, and those are other speakers, other kathavachiks within the Sikh Panth, and they're saying that this pankti of Bhagat Kabir Ji, Kabir meri simrani rasna upar Ram, they use this as well. They say कि नहीं पातशाह ने कहते गुरमत विच माला नु खंडन किता आ, that a mala, it's not Gurmat, that Kabir Ji saying our mala is our tongue. But no, Sangat Ji, because Kabir Ji is saying to us themselves that when they first started their own journey, their journey started, Sangat Ji, by using a mala first. How do we know that? In their own Bani, if I can remember the panktiyan, and those panktiyan where Bhagat Kabir Ji is talking about that Jabki mala lay niputte, then so and then I'll be able to see the rest of this. So Jabki mala lay niputte tabte sukhna peo. So it's the word peo that was throwing me off a bit. So here Bhagat Kabir Ji saying they're speaking from the perspective of their mother. Kende mere mata ji jade san, kende my mother was saying to me, she was saying, actually this is Bhagat Kabir Ji, this is amazing. Bhagat Kabir Ji sharing a conversation of their mother, and their mother is having that conversation with another relative. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਬ ਕੀ ਮਾਲਾ, as the other word I was getting wrong, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਬ ਕੀ ਮਾਲਾ ਲਈ ਨਿਪੁੱਤੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ since my son has taken that mala, taken that rosary, those beads within his hand, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਬ ਕੀ ਮਾਲਾ ਲਈ ਨਿਪੁੱਤੇ, ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਬ ਦੇ ਸੁਖ ਨਾ ਭਇਓ. She says, since that time I've seen no sukh in my life. And what she means by that is, now, just like we see in our lives, we may have experienced in our homes. So as a child, you may have come into Sikhi now, and you've now started to jap more naam, read more bani. You don't take now part in all the slandering that takes on in people's households. And then your parents say, oh, I don't know what's happened to him or her. Since he or she's become more religious, it's not done any sukh means here that it's not done any good for me. So when over here it's translated as that I've seen had no peace, meaning that because his path is become different now, it doesn't match with my path now. Just like Satguru Ji Paatshah's Bani said, kende bhagta tੈ sansariya jod kade na aaya. Kende though the people that are very worldly minded, and their mind is constantly entangled in worldly things, and those that are the bhagats, those that are the devotees and completely have devoted themselves to Waheguru Ji, to God or to their Guru, Sangat Ji, and they're saying, oh jehde hunde ne bhagat, their paths are very different. It's very difficult for somebody that is completely worldly to understand someone that is spiritual. To them, they are just crazy. So here Guru Arjan Dev Ji, so going back to the other panktiya where Paatshah Ji kende mathe tilak, hath mala ba, and then hath mala bisram, and then so it's a small bisram, then it's bana. Bana is this religious robes. Kende log na ram khilona jana. Kende, and then what happens is, kende log na ram khilona jana. They said they've made God into this toy. This has become all a joke. That's if you're fake and you're actually conning people. But no, Sangat Ji, it's a very good place to start is with a mala. And some people, just to make sure that name of God does go deep inside of them, do a set amount a day. So often Baba Nand Singh Ji ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦਾ ਪੂਰਨਮਾਸ਼ੀ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਪੂਰਨਮਾਸ਼ੀ ਤੱਕ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਹਿਜ ਪਾਠ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ Baba Ji would give out this Dargahi Prashad. Dargahi Prashad means the blessings from that world of Waheguru Ji, and they would give that out and they'd say on top of your Nitnem that is given to you, they say that do darshan of Guru Granth Sahib Ji's Bani, all of it. And this is if you're not able to do that, then they would say do 10 Japji Sahibs a day. If not that, then 2 Sukhmani Sahibs a day. This is if you're not able to do that, then do 6 Mala of Mool Mantra a day, then 6 Mala of Mool Mantra. And then they say if you can't even do that, then do Malas of Vaheguru Mantra. So Sangat Ji, in this way, that Bhagat Kabir Ji, so for a child or anyone in this beginning journey, you start off with the Mala, it's not Khandan, it's not been forbidden in Gurmat at all. So Sangat Ji, Paatshah Ji itte ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਸਤ ਊਚ, and hast ਊਚ, that pouch that you would have to make sure that you remain gupt and you don't become this show about what you're doing. So that's what it was. And then Paatshah ਕਹਿੰਦੇ what is it, what's the pouch going to be for us? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ that pouch is this, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਧਾਰਣੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ having love in your heart. Having love in your heart for your Guru, and then reciting the mantra, having love in your heart for that one, for Waheguru Ji, and then reciting that mantra. Kende jeeb bhan, kende use your tongue. Apni jeeb naal bhan means to recite. Kende jeeb de naal, and here again looking at this, chanting this most sublime words, but here they've not translated here the word ji. It means jeeb, means tongue. Sangat kende jeeb. So Balchi's used the word ji. So here it's for us jeeb. Use your tongue and recite God's name, because that's where we start from. Again, this is another thing that people are trying to take away from us. And they're saying that actually, no, it's all about just nowadays, people are just going around and saying it's about just being a good person. And you don't have to just keep repeating the name of God again and again. But no, Paatshah is saying here, use your tongue to recite that mantra again and again. Jo Uttam Salok, the most sublime Salok meaning here, the praise of Waheguru Ji, praise Waheguru Ji through Gurbani with your tongue, Paatshah Ji saying. And then what happened? Uddharanang, Nan Nandani, Nan means your eyes, Nandani, Sangat Ji, means something that when you look at and it gives you so much joy and you think, oh wow, meaning Maya. All this that actually entices us to make it the Maya that entices us and makes us think it is real, and we get so attached to it. Then the Udaranang will be saved from drowning in that attachment of this Maya, Sangat Ji. So, before we move on, to be clear, Mala is not khandan in Gurmat. Mala is not forbidden in Gurmat. It's actually very useful, a very useful tool to be able to focus our mind if our mind is wandering. And then once that mind gets trained to focus with a mala, and then our mind will be trained to focus in so many different aspects of our life, whether then that be our family life, giving that attention to our partner when we're speaking, in our education, at work. That will then spill over in so many things, and then that repetition as well will start to sit inside, where the remembrance of God becomes constant. And once the remembrance of God becomes constant, and then our karam, our actions will become nirmal, they will become pure as well. And I know this pangtiyan to match all of this from Sri Sukhmani side, but I'm not going to go down that road now. So that was just to give that clarification. And yes, use the tongue to constantly recite again and again. Be pangtiyan from Gurbani as well, different lines or shabads from Gurbani, and the Guru's mantra as well. So let's go forward. पाच जी कहने गुरमंत्र हीणस्य जो प्राणी त्रिगंत जन्म भ्रष्टन है. And Pach ji saying here कहने gur mantra. So here the translation to mantra, Sangat ji, is the Guru's word. So not necessarily Vaheguru Gur mantra hai jap home khoi. So it's not referring to necessarily just that one mantra that the Guru has given us to recite again and again. Here, Guru mantra means the overall teachings and the word of the Guru. So Pachkane Guru mantra heenasya. Heenasya means those that are without, that haven't taken on a Guru, and that haven't given themselves to a Guru, and that follows the Guru's word. Kende Guru mantra heenasya jo prani, that mortal that hasn't got the Guru's mantra, the Guru's isn't following the Guru. That's probably the best way to describe it. The one that isn't following the Guru's word. Kende trigant. So like I said, Sangaji, the reason why I try and avoid using the word teaching is because I don't want Bani to be belittled, because this is above and beyond just a mere teaching from like a worldly teacher. So this is the Guru's word. When I say the Guru's word, I'm referring to it as this is the actual divine message of Vaheguruji of Akal Purkh. Then that mortal, prani means mortal, the one that has breath inside of them. Prana means breath, E means inside. And I'm not going to go into detail how this word has come about, mantra meaning the Guru's word and not necessarily the actual mantra that's given to us here in this context. But something that will be coming out soon, and maybe in the next few months, I can't say for sure, is one of the parts in Slok Mahalla Nova Pacha Ji Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Bani. It's all covered in there in a lot of detail. So when that comes out, we'll let the Sangat know, and then you can follow in detail what mantra actually means. Then Pach ji kende jo prani trigant janam, kende de janam, their life is trigant, is cursed, meaning it's got no worth to it, their life. Pach ji saying those that don't actually take on a Guru. Why? Because kende then what happens? Kende prashtana. Prashta comes from the word buddhi, and buddhi means the intellect, and then prashtana means that the buddhi is so lowly, the way that they actually, their way of thinking, the way they perceive things, the way they look at life is at such a low level, is so shallow. And that's not judging them. It doesn't mean shallow in the way that when somebody is not an intellectual, or somebody that whose intellect isn't very sharp, not in that way. It's talking about that people that actually they've got their own definition of life, and within that own definition of the way they actually perceive life, they end up doing some very lowly actions, Sangat ji. And some of those lowly actions could be where somebody is looking at Prai Istri. And Sangaji, I was thinking about this the other day, looking at Prai, when I was always think about translating Prai Istri. And I always used to translate it in these fancy ways of looking upon the beauty of another. And I was thinking, like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to use all these fancy words as in like literally the way it's translated and the way it might come up? And I thought, like, come on, Singh, get real. Talk to the Sangat in the language that they would understand. So use the actual terminologies that are used nowadays. So, for example, if somebody okays it within their own mind, so according to their own definition of their own mind, it's alright to check out girls, it's alright to check out guys, even if you're married. And then, but we know the dangers of this, what this can lead to. We know, so that, for somebody it might be a barrier that I'm not going to flirt though. I would never have that type of conversation with them though. Oh, you know what? But I would never do anything beyond this. It's only an innocent, flirt. I would never go beyond that. And then everybody's got their own little, rules in place for their own self. But Satguru Ji Paatshah is saying, kende Sikh ta oh a, I always say that Sikh ta oh a, but the truth is, ਆ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸਗਲ ਜਹਾਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਥਾਏ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਪ੍ਰਥਾਏ ਸਾਖੀ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸਗਲ ਜਹਾਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ is saying actually ਕਹਿੰਦੇ the Guru might be speaking through somebody, the Guru might be teaching a Sikh ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਥਾਏ ਸਾਖੀ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸਗਲ ਜਹਾਨੇ, but actually they said it's for everyone. But they might be speaking through someone. Guru Sahib might be speaking through one of their Sikh. But it's Sanji, Sagal Jahan, it's actually for everyone though, Paatshah Ji saying. So, Sangat Ji, so actually this Upadesh is for the entire humanity if they want true Sukh. So, the Guru is saying actually, what do you want out of your life? And then you can live accordingly to that. So, they're saying their buddhi is very, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਭ੍ਰਸ਼ਟ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਆ ਬੁੱਧੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਥਾਏ ਸਾਖੀ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸਗਲ ਜਹਾਨੇ. It was a bit slow today, my little Veer. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, the ਕਹਿੰਦੇ look, so it doesn't matter how somebody is sharing it, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, but it's for everyone. So this is for the whole of humanity really. If the whole of humanity live like this, if you're pure inside, if you become pure inside of yourself and you then start to spread that, imagine how beautiful this whole entire world would become. Look what happens from that. Sangaji, when somebody's buddhi is prisht means is ruined. Their whole way of looking at life, the way they perceive things. Look at this now. When somebody has that their own, this is my boundary. Everyone's got their own personal boundaries ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਆ ਨਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ. ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਧਰਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਕਿ ਆ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਧਰਮ ਆ. ਸੋ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਧਰਮ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਨਿੱਜੀ ਧਰਮ means my own personal beliefs, and people have their own personal beliefs, but their own personal belief without taking on a guru could be very prashtana. Prashtana means, so like I explained, so it could be that mind is up to here, and then what could happen? It's I'm alright with just checking girls out, if they're wearing a certain clothes, if they're wearing certain revealing clothes, and that's for me to enjoy. And people use even terms like, there's nothing wrong with window shopping, not knowing what they're doing to their brain and the patterns that are being formed in their brain. Because we know now that there's the neuroscientists that have actually studied the brain. They said this brain it's like I can't remember the word for it now, plasticity, that's it. So it's changeable. It changes shape the way our neurons fire inside our brain. So they don't realize it's creating certain patterns, and what that does is when you're creating a pattern, it's doing something in your mind where that very little boundary that you had, I'm just window shopping, and you've okayed yourself to look to a certain point, that in itself can lead to something so extreme, where that in itself could lead to something as extreme as somebody even committing a sin such as rape, just coming from that, because their boundary might be it's okay to just have 2 glasses of alcohol as long as I don't get intoxicated from it. That might be somebody's boundary, but nobody knows the way alcohol is going to hit them on what day, because of the way your own system is on that day. I remember my own experiences of alcohol of, being able to sit throughout a night and drink all night till 5 o'clock in the morning, starting at like 8 or 9 o'clock the night before, and still being okay-ish. Obviously, you're going to be a bit gone after all of that. But there was been times where, like, drinking one Stella and it's quite hot out there and the winds hit you and it's rocked you, meaning that it's affected you. So you don't know. So पाँच जिस कहते अपना पराया ना पछाने खस्मों तक्के खाए. पाँच जिस कहते where you, that might be your boundary, but you don't know the way it's affected you and it's hit you that day. It's hit you to that extent because your boundary was only that it's okay to look at, but now your buddhi has been affected as well by taking that alcohol, and now look at the effect that it has. And then eventually hoya ki buddhi prasht hogi, and that can lead to so much. Pachi says now actually kende kukare sukare. Kukare means a dog. So kukar is a dog. Kende kukare sukare is a pig. Kende gardabe is a donkey. I know you've got it translated differently there, but most of the time it will come up as a donkey. Kende gardabe kake, and kake is a crow. And then sarpana is a snake. Tul means barabar, equivalent to kale. Kale translates to a fool, and I think they've used the word blockhead there. I've not really come across that term. I think I've heard it, but I don't use it. Not used it very often. So kale means somebody that is an uneducated fool, but uneducated meaning spiritually. So saying that you're just equivalent to any of these animals if you've not taken on a guru, because without a guru, you're bound to, your own thinking is bound to fail you. But there's an arth that has been done where it actually is saying that never mind. And one thing very important to remember here is, Mere Satguru Ji, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, any of the Guru Sahibans, any of the Bhagats, whoever has contributed Gurbani, is in no way putting any animal down. They are taking the human being, give him a good shake, and they're saying that actually, you know what? They said that animal is what it's meant to be. They're not putting the dog down. They're not saying a dog is a sinner. Will you see anywhere in Gurbani where Gurbani says a dog is a sinner, a dog accumulates, good and bad karam, and then it's judged accordingly to that? No. But an animal is what it's meant to be. But you have got a different ability. You've got a different level of intellect. You've got a different level of consciousness. And ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਅਰਥ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਸੰਪਰਦਾਇਕ ਵੀਰਾਂ ਨੇ, even Faridkot Steek, and I think the second arth done in Taksal as well is sarpane. So if we split this up, sarp na. Na meaning that you're not even equivalent to an animal junni. We say that a human being is at the highest. Can they nah? Can they no? Can they think again? Can they, you're not even equivalent to them? Can they, you're below that? So ਪਾਠ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੰਘ ਗਿਆ. ਕਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ, ਤੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਕਹਾਵਤ ਆ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਯਾਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਨਵਰਾਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਵੀ ਲੰਘ ਗਿਆ ਆ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ you've even now passed an animal, and that isn't putting an animal down. ਪਾਠ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਰਤੂਤ ਪਸ਼ੂ ਕੀ ਮਾਨਸ ਜਾਤ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ your jati, you are meant to be what you refer to as a human being. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਰਤੂਤ, but your ways, kartut pasuki, are of an animal. So let's look at this now. You're not even anywhere near equivalent to any of these animals. They said, because if you look at these animals, they've all got such good qualities. You can learn so much from these animals, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but let's just look at a kukar. A kukar again will be covered in much more detail in Slok Mahla Nova, where Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Paat ji kende Swami ko griho jo sada swan tajit nahi nit. So they said just like a dog is so loyal to its master, And they said a dog will guard his or her master's door all night, and is so loyal and will make sure that they will do their best, even if they give their life, but they won't let anyone get close to their master. They will protect them. And a loyal dog, a loyal dog, Sangaji, will not even take food from anyone else, even though a dog has got a reputation as being greedy. But Paat ji kende look, kende ek kutta ya, kende a dog is so loyal, kende but you've gone even past a dog now. Teri buddhi nahi prasht ho gaya, your own buddhi. Sangaji, somebody that's become a drug addict, or somebody's become an addict of something or of another, whatever it is nowadays. I've heard that I came across somebody, I think in the last year or two, that something that's really popular nowadays is just gambling on your phone. And it was somebody that I actually knew of, and and I'm sorry if you are watching, my friend, I'm not using this example, obviously no names are mentioned. I'm not using this example as putting anyone down. It's just to say that what can end up happening to someone, because he's making a huge effort now of reforming himself, and I think he actually has done really well. But I think he was gambling on his phone so much, he became addicted to alcohol, but gambling on his phone on casinos, and I had actually spent up to £30,000, had lost £30,000 on just gambling, sitting at home on the phone. So this is what is happening when the buddhi without a guru is becoming prashtana. Pachi kende a kukara is so loyal, but somebody who will get to that level in their life that isn't even loyal to their own family, to their own parents. They're not even loyal, Sangadiji, to their own parents that have given them life, that's actually given them so much, done so much for them, and they are actually cheating them. They're stealing their own parents' money, and just to actually, to fill that gap, for their drug habit, to feed their drug habit, or to feed their gambling habit. And I know addiction is actually, it's now classed as a huge mental health issue. So it's not judging anyone or looking down at anyone. It's just recognizing where somebody's buddhi can end up, how low it could end up without taking on a guru. So if there is anyone in that position that it's not looking down at you, it's not bringing that judgment on you in that way of saying that you're a bad person, but it's just to say that the guru can help and get us out of these situations. And obviously you can contact different organizations that can actually post you towards the right direction. If you want to reach out to Sikh Helpline, or reach out to organizations like Tarki or Seek Your Mind, and they can actually help in these situations. But I'm just doing the katha of this Bani, but in the same breath talking about where somebody could end up in their life. Kende kukar hai, kukar kende o tere naal changa, kende tu ta ode barabar bhi nahi reha, kende tu ta ode naal bhi thalle gir gaya hai, you've fallen even below that of a dog junni, kende tu hai, what have you become? So on the other side, we say that dogs have got a greedy nature. And Pachaji talk about this nature of a dog as well. And this is antar byape lob swan. And this is sometimes there's that greedy dog that sits inside and starts barking inside of us. And what that's actually saying is, and then the next pankti Pachaji kende antar agan bahar tan swa. Antar agan, this is now, this inside is raging with the fire of agan, of these desires. Kende bahar tan swa. And then but on the outside you're putting these ashes on. And what that means is you're putting these ashes on. It's talking about a yogic practice that where the yogis would actually smear ash on themselves to remind them of death, and that this body is not going to be here forever, so that it's going to become ash one day. And there's even deeper meanings to it, but I'm not going to go into all of that now. That's a Japji Sahib Katha. So Paatji the kende ne that greed inside. But if you look at a dog, Guru Sahib Ji isn't talking down of a dog. You know why the dog has got that nature of being greedy, antar vyape lobh swan? If we look at that, it's not actually talking down at a dog in that sense as well. You know where it's come from. So when most dogs actually just lived wild, and there's many countries still where dogs are just living wild and having to survive in different places in jungles or whatever it may be. So what the dogs, to be able to survive, for them to actually get hold of any food would be very difficult for them. So what they would do is, if they ever did get, even when they weren't hungry, because they knew within themselves, they had that much awareness that because it's so difficult to hunt to get some food from somewhere, when they did see some food, even if they're not hungry, they would actually then consume and eat that food. And what happened was, and now if somebody, and this doesn't even go for all dogs now. So there's many dogs that don't actually have that nature. But there are some dogs that are house pets, and they've actually still got that nature in them, where they're constantly just looking at, whenever somebody starts to eat, if whoever their owner is and they start to eat, they'll keep staring at that food. And whatever it is, they want a piece of it, they want a bit of it. Why? Because it's passed down from their ancestors. It's actually passed down from, if their parents or their grandparents of those dogs, and they had that survival instinct inside of them, it was passed down through that DNA that was passed through. And the genes within the DNA was actually very instinctive genes for survival, of needing to survive. So then they don't now, those kutte now that are greedy but they've got everything, they're still thinking it's built into them now to be able to look how clever nature is. That we say to Vaheguruji that panch tat ko tan racho chattur, that they're saying, look how clever Vaheguruji is. Panch tat ko tan rachyo janho Chatur Sujan. Know that Vaheguruji to be so wise and clever. That Shakti, that power, that Vaheguruji, that super consciousness, whatever somebody is able to relate to, whatever word, because God, Vaheguru, these are all different words that people can somehow connect to that one, to that Shakti. So Sangaji, look how it works. It's passed through that, even just in case then those children need to survive, that they know that as soon as they get any food, make sure they eat that food, because they don't know when they're going to get their next meal and they don't want to die of starvation. Look how clever that is. And now that's been passed down to them. So in that sense, yes, they're greedy, but look at how. But Padsha Ji is saying to us, you may have taken those characteristics on of a dog. We may have been a dog in our last life, and we're still carrying that now. Or our ancestors, Sangaji, may have needed to survive, and they lived in those type of raw type of conditions, and they needed to actually now hunt to get food or whatever it may have been. But now, but you've now got the level, you've got the ability to take on a guru and have that wisdom passed down to you, and you can live consciously, and you don't have to live through even the genes that have been passed down to you, and which are a form of karam. Sangaji, even what's passed down to us through our family is a form of karam. And just like a dog can pass down through their genes that survival instinct, Sangaji, in that same way, a human being through their genes pass on traits as well into their then children, into their grandchildren. So sometimes it might skip a generation, it might skip your parents, but you might take something on of your grandparents, or even of our, I'm saying yours, mammy, I'm a human being as well, or trying to be, I don't know actually, looking at this now, I might not be even equivalent to a dog. And so it could be our great grandfathers. And so somebody might be very anxious about something. And what it is, that anxiety may have been, that anxiety and fear towards something may have actually been in our grandparents where they had this fear of something, but it was out of trying to survive from a situation. And what's happened now is we go to a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, just like there was that, I can't remember the name now, one of my most favorite reads that I read about 8-9 years ago now, which is, I had the special edition of, I think it was something to do with happiness anyway. I can't believe I forgot the name of the book. Anyway, but it's written by a American psychiatrist and alongside the Dalai Lama. And in there, the American psychiatrist, he actually said, that I can't believe I failed this case. That why is this woman suicidal? Because there's certain things that are passed through the genes, and we've got our own karam from what we've done. So what are karam? When we talk about karam from our last lives, those karams from our, there we go, thank you Virji. The Art of Happiness, it was one of my most favorite reads back then. I've bought so many copies of it, but I've given it out to so many different people. The psychiatrist was that Howard C. Cutler, and it was written alongside the Dalai Lama. I absolutely love that book because it gives us jugtiyan of how to become more compassionate. It opens our mind to actually, it's where we start to understand it's not just a belief system, this reincarnation. So sometimes anxiety is passed down to us, fears are passed down to us through our genes. And now that brings us to something. It brings us to a psychiatrist might not be able to, a psychologist might not be able to find the root of why we're so anxious, because it could be passed down from our genes and from karma. When I just mentioned the word karam, the whole karma, the way it all works, the karma system is so complex, and it is beyond our reasoning with this mind. Because when we talk about what is it, karma is just things that are stored in our memory, but not memory just being in our brain. Memory is throughout us, and so it's when we talk about genetic memory. Singji, genetic memory is not just in our brain, in our memory, thinking memory over there. There's memory throughout our body, just like there's that genetic memory passed through our parents, and as a particular child might look just like their parent. Because that's a form of memory that is passed on. That's a karam that is passed on. There's karma that's there within us, that's throughout our whole entire body, throughout all our cells, every part of us. So Sangaji, and that makes us now, knowing that information, it can help us to act very consciously. If we know we're going to bring children into this world, that our own fears and anxieties, if we don't actually start working on them to rise above them, and if we don't start acting more consciously and reading more Bani lovingly, having these qualities inside of us of serving, of being more compassionate, of instilling and doing things and finding ways of how to instill these inside of us. I'm not going to go into how to do that now, because then I just get so sidetracked. But this will affect our children that we're going to bring into this world of how we are now. All these things matter. So every form of memory, look, the way we look is a form of memory, which is a part of the whole karma system. So it's much more than just action and reaction as we know it. So, ek gal yaad aa gayi. Sangat ji, it's so powerful, this transfer of memory of even the way somebody looks. Never mind through genes, it can be done, because everything is energy. This energy is so powerful. Somebody says that, somebody that you're constantly around and you're spending a lot of time with them and they start rubbing off on you. You know, that word rubbing off on you is deeper than we could comprehend with this mind. I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but there was a woman saint, this Bhagatani, if you want to call her that, and so because I'm sure I can make up these words, because I saw today that my sister Gurpreet Kaur translated some Ratname, and in the Ratname it had the word Sikhni. So sometimes people say there's no such word. Well, she's found it, and it's in some of the Ratnam, Sikhni. So I'm sure we can say Bhagatani as well. And she actually lived right at the tip of South India, right at the bottom. But she had come from Nepal, because she had features of how she's from somewhere like Nepal or Tibet. And she had the features of the Tibetan people. And she traveled, and her name was Mamaya. So you can actually search this. There's not much on her. You might find a couple of pages that come up on the internet about her. And her name was Mamaya, and she was this saint that people did not used to take any interest in her. And they used to just think she's crazy because she didn't look like a saint. Her clothes used to be all dirty, and she used to be really rough looking, and she used to just walk around the streets, and whatever leftover foods were there in India, the way they have their shops, and at the front of those shops, that the food that was left over, she would take that food, but she wouldn't feed herself first. She had so much compassion there in her. She'd go around feeding all the animals within that place where she was staying, and it was because it was right at the end and by the ocean, and people only started to take her seriously and started to follow her and become her disciples when she would just be effortlessly not even thinking about it. She wasn't forming any miracles. I think she existed, I think probably about 80, I'm not sure, but 50, 60 years ago. And she would be sitting, they said, and when the ocean water would come forward, and they said people would see her just floating on top of the waves, and she wouldn't drown. And Sangaji, all these things are possible. This is a part of a siddhi from the yogis. This is a part of a siddhi that they would perform, that they would actually work towards, that when your whole body becomes a lot lighter, and then you could even levitate. You could be sitting on top of water and you won't drown, because your whole, somehow the akara of your sarir has become a lot lighter now. So she didn't practice that, but because she was just a devotee, it just happened to her itself, and people started taking her more seriously. But what I want to say to you is, never mind transformation through genes, is that there was a man that came from a totally different, from more of central India, and travelled out, had absolute no features, had like a sharp looking nose and everything, and had no features, Sangaji, of a Tibetan person, and looked nothing like this woman. But he devoted himself in service. A disciple became her Sikh, because remember, the word Sikh has been around for thousands of years, so don't get all funny if I'm calling him a Sikh of that Mamaya. He became a Sikh of hers. He devoted himself so much that his features actually changed, and I think he's still actually alive and around, and there's pictures of him today in modern age, and if you look at him from the past today, his features are completely changed and become exactly like who he took on as his guru, that Mamaya. And he's got now a completely flat nose and looks like somebody that's come from Tibet as well. Meaning that transfer of energy, how powerful it is, even Sangatji, even if we're doing Sangat with someone, how powerful it can be, the transfer of energy, and how it can actually start changing our DNA from inside with somebody that we are serving. So we've got to be very careful and conscious of who we surround ourselves with, who we are doing Sangat with, and who our thoughts are devoted to, because our very thoughts our Simran can start changing our DNA. That's the power. Sangat ji, kukra. Sukra. Pachaji now talk about a pig. You've become even below than a pig, because they say a pig, sakat te sukar pala acha rakhe gao. Pachaji कहने लगे, भगत कबीर जी कहने लगे, कबीर सूकर ते कहते कबीर साकत ते सूकर भला आछा राखे गाओ. Pachaji here is saying कहते कबीर साकत ते सूकर भला, oh, the other way around, rakhe acha gao. Gao means village. And you know, I was actually looking at this, what are the pros and cons of keeping a pig as a pet. And something that I came across that I found that was amazing, somebody that they kept him as like farming, so it was pet slash, a farming pig for them. But they got so attached to this pig, this one family, they couldn't send it off to be slaughtered eventually. But one of the pros that they said of this pig was, they said that, they said what was amazing about it was, they said that our food wastage went to nearly zero. They said because no matter what we had left over, they said as long as it wasn't moldy, they said we could put it out to the pig and the pig would just so happily eat it. And Bhagat Kabir ji somebody that is faithless, they said a pig is actually better than them. Because it actually at least it goes around and eats all the gum and it eats all the dirt and it keeps all the village clean. But somebody that is faithless, meaning that doesn't put faith in a guru and doesn't take on the guru's word, the guru's way of living into their life, they said that a pig is better than them. They said because somebody that's faithless, they'll actually go around not cleaning up, but they'll go around making a mess. Why? How do they make a mess? They make a mess by they're destroying people's lives. If we look at the next pangti, they Bhagat Kabir oho saakat bapura mar gaya, koi na lahe now. People don't even speak about those people when they die. Mar gaya, that's faithless person. Bapura means that poor wretched person. Why don't you want to even say their name? Because they went and caused a mess. They went and actually ruined people's lives. Because they were into drink alcohol themselves, they actually dragged other people down with them. And then their parents would be swearing at them, Sada munda bigaad dita, you ruined our child. Somebody that actually talks somebody else into having an affair because they enjoy going to strip bars and going to brothels or whatever they do. This might sound extreme, but you find more married men in strip bars than single men. So it's not so far-fetched. So Sangaji, then they actually ruin other people's lives. They're the ones that go around slandering and talking about other people, filling people with poison. They sakat Sangaji that don't take on the guru. And just because somebody claims that they've got a guru, but if they've not taken on what the guru is saying, then they are sakat as well. They are faithless as well. And then if somebody is actually bringing somebody else down that has already got a guru, pulling them down, Sangaji, they are worse than a pig because they actually make a mess. Kende kukre, sukre, gardabe. Gardabe Sangaji, maaf karna jor zyada lag gaya. Kende gardabe are those. Gardabe means a donkey. Can they look at a donkey, be hot weather, be in the cold, but it doesn't complain? That even if it gets tired, but when people actually use it to, they put weight on it, and if people, and this is how people used to, the traders, when they would go and bring merchant, they'd use donkeys to put weight on a donkey's back. And they said, look how good that donkey doesn't complain no matter what it is. But Sakat is constantly somebody that hasn't taken on the Guru's way of life, instilled it inside of them. They're constantly moaning, oh, it's too hot, oh, it's raining, oh, they're never happy no matter what. Oh, I'm tired now, I can't do this, oh, I can't believe things are like this. At work, it's always complaining. A donkey's better than you. Kake is a crow. Even a crow has got so many guns, so many attributes. And in one of the Vedantic Granths, out of the 7 Granths of Vedant, Sanghaji, out of one of their Granths, they've actually listed about 5 different qualities of a crow. And this says, but one of the attributes they said about a crow, this is kende jehड़ा ਉਹ अपना गृहस्थ करदा है, kende ਉਹ kende छुप के करदा है. And what that means is, when a crow actually takes part in practicing whatever sexual activity is with their partner, they say that they are very conscious and very cautious of where that is. And this is, they'll actually make sure that it's in a very hidden place. So meaning they've got a lot of sharm, they've got a lot of, they're very conscious minded in that way. And that was just one thing. There was other things as well. That was one thing that stuck out for me, Sangatji. And they're saying that they're not greedy for food as well. They'll only eat what they need. And they actually stock up food as well. But Sangatji look, even a crow is better than them. You don't even care anymore. The acts and the activities that you're doing, they just on show in front of everyone now. You've got no shame left in your life, and you don't even think in that way as that Khan does. ਉਹ ਵੀ ਫੇਰ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਗ੍ਰਸਤ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਨਾ, ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ. ਪਰ ਤੇਰੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹੁਣ. ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਸ਼ਰੇਆਮ ਹੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਸ਼ਰਮ ਹੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਲਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਹੁਣ. So ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, some of these things ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦੀਆਂ ਜੱਚਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ. Some of these things, the way you can actually bring them across in Punjabi. I'll tell you the truth, Sangaji, I get stuck with the English. I really struggle. Sometimes I have to look at some of these words, even though I'm born and bred here. But meri English muk jandi, but my English comes to an end. And I actually struggle with English. And I flow better with the Punjabi. So I'm not going to say what I said about the ka, because I just won't do justice to it in English. And whatever I've said, you have to take it out of that. But ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਸਰਪਣ ਹੈ. A sarp ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਸੱਪ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਮਾੜਾ. You're not even equivalent to a snake. A snake, they said, is very intuitive. A snake is very alert, and it's actually quite a shy animal, and it keeps itself to itself, and it then only attacks, and it's protective when it thinks it's in danger. And it can sense a lot of things. But somebody that hasn't given themselves to the Guru and is completely just, engaged themselves in worldly things, they've lost that intuitiveness of having that inner connection, of having that inner knowing. A snake's better than you in that sense. So, Sangaji, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've only managed 2 sloks again. That what can I do? That's all. I actually read and practiced a lot more sloka than that. I think I went through about 4 more sloks after this. I didn't think I was going to spend so much time on the whole mala thing. But then I thought there's so much dirt being thrown out there nowadays. People just, sometimes you come across certain people doing prachar and you find them on Facebook as well. And all they talk about is what Gursikhs shouldn't be doing, and it's so full of negativity, and all they're doing is talking down about other people, down about sants or certain practice. And I thought, pyareo, apa ta prem naal bharna si, because we were supposed to be spreading love, not spreading poison. Prachar isn't about spreading poison. So I thought I must clear some of those things up about some of the people speaking with so much poison against things like the mala that could help somebody so much. People speak and spew poison against beautiful paintings like this of whether this is an accurate version of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, that's irrelevant. Singh Ji, ask somebody that has never sat in Sangat before, and that is living that even a lower mentality than these animals that we've just gone through. I remember up until the age of 16, I'm 39 now, but when I was up to 16, I had never really gone to a Gurdwara. Even if it was a wedding, I'd be sat outside the Gurdwara in a coach or something, because I'd still have so much alcohol in my system from the night before, and I'd be still going off and smoking weed or something. And if I ever did go into the Gurdwara Sahib, I couldn't sit there and concentrate. You didn't have a clue what people were saying. So if a painting can remind you of some of the stories of your great guru and help you focus your mind a little bit instead of perving on somebody, let's think about the positive, Sangat Ji. Let's spread love. ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਈਸ਼ਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੋੜਨ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਪੁੰਨ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੋੜਨ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਪਾਪ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਹ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ there's no bigger sin than breaking somebody, and there's no bigger deed than actually connecting someone. So ਆਪਾਂ ਜੋੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਣੀਏ, ਤੋੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਨਾ ਬਣੀਏ. Let's help people increase their faith, their shraddha, and not break their faith. So ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ in these katha so many things get cleared up, and it'd be great one day that blessed day might come, Sangat Ji, where we actually manage to make nice little small clips out of these, clearing these controversies and these concepts within the Panth. So ਮੇਰੀ ਸੁਭਾਅ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕਥਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ. My way, personality is such that these things that they all come out kind of in the katha. Because one of my great inspirations is Gyani Kulwant Singh. We spoke about how you end up becoming like someone, and Gyani Kulwant Singh ji ends up doing that as well. And they're supposed to be translating one pangti of Japji Sahib, and then they'll go off for about half an hour, and they'll say, Sangat Ji, Ro Vichar, let's come back to where we were meant to be. And I've taken a bit of that on. So Sangat Ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.